Welcome to the Illinois Higher Education Center's video on scare tactics and drug prevention. For those that don't know me, my name is Dave Clausen, and I'm one of the assistant directors here at IHEC.
I'm gonna try meth just once. I'm gonna smoke this just once. I'm gonna steal just once. I'm going to sleep with him for meth just once.
I'm going to try meth just once.
Take a moment and think about that video. How did it make you feel? Well, this video is from the Montana Meth Project. They had launched a big campaign to take on meth use, and well, the results weren't too good at all. They actually backfired. The perception of how risky meth use is actually decreased among young people. The perception of teens reporting that they strongly approve of regular meth use increased fourfold. The percentage of teens reporting they strongly disapprove of meth use decreased with each year of the campaign. 40 to 50% of teens indicated that many of the ads exaggerated the risks of meth use. So scare tactics, what are they? Well, the goal is to emphasize the worst possible scenario to create fear, with the hope that the fear is going to deter use. But after 60 years of research, we all know it doesn't work. So why are we still doing it? Some examples of scare tactics are the ever so popular mock DUI crashes, or horror stories told by recovering addicts, or even graphic ads with gruesome photos. Some of the characteristics of scare tactics are emotionally charged portrayal of the negative consequences, a warning of dire results and those tragic consequences, and they try to elicit guilt or anxiety with a "this can happen to you" approach. Now let's talk about reason number one. Filtering of information differs between adults and young people, and this is because the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. And most adults will use logic and reasoning to filter information, whereas youth will filter it differently since the prefrontal cortex doesn't finish developing until the mid-20s. And the prefrontal cortex controls impulses, exercising judgment, and decision making. Let's talk about hormones. As we all know, there's a flood of hormones during puberty, and this, well, creates a tinderbox of emotions that leads young people to seek out intense feelings. This is commonly referred to as sensation seeking. So with that, teens are naturally driven to engage in risky, impulsive behavior without the ability to put the brakes on. So when teens are experiencing intense emotions, it's difficult for them to think through potential outcomes, consequences, or even use common sense. Now let's talk about reason number two. We've all got a natural defense to feelings of fear. If something scares you, you've got your own way of dealing with it. One of those ways is denial. You know, it won't happen to me. Another way is avoidance. This is just too scary. I'm not going to think about it. Or numbing. I just don't understand. Then there's skepticism. They're just trying to manipulate me, so I'm going to ignore them. And then lastly, there's making fun of the message. And this would sound something like, "This is your brain on drugs. This is your brain on drugs with a side of bacon." Moving on to reason number three, breaking those bad norms. Scare tactics have a tendency to send an unintended message. They can show that partying and drug use is actually the norm. And then since adults are concerned about drugs, it must be a widespread problem among their peers and that not using drugs must be really difficult. It can establish that using drugs is the norm, and if their peers are actually using, then they'll be more accepting of the use. Then youth with a favorable view on drugs are more invested in maintaining that view. They can also create the idea that everyone is doing it, and then their core belief is actually justified. So what about thrill seekers and the risk takers? We briefly touched on this earlier in talking about hormones and emotions and how they lead to sensation seeking. Well, their defense mechanisms will actually trigger a thrill for danger. That in turn will fuel high-risk behavior. So what about the experimenters? If they have already tried it and they haven't seen any of the negative consequences, the scare tactics are actually likely to push them to do it even more. So we have covered 4 of the reasons that scare tactics don't work in drug prevention. So now we're going to watch just one more video from the Montana Meth Project. And just keep in mind these 4 reasons that we just covered as you watch this video and see what you think.
I wish my tire had blown out that night. I wish my car had skidded off the road. I wish I'd broken my neck. I wish I'd been crippled. But I didn't crash. I drove to that party and I did meth for the first time. I did meth, and now this is my life. This is my life.
So now, the solutions. What are they? Well, the first one would be to focus on education rather than using these scare tactics. The second one is to focus on skills development. Teach the young adults skills to handle the emotionally charged situations that they might come across. That way they can exercise good judgment and reasoning in determining their behavior. And we'll keep these short right here, but we'll be touching on them in more detail in following videos. In the meantime, if you'd like more information, feel free to refer to our website or just send us an email. We also have access to a PDF document that goes into the history and some of the data on scare tactics and how they are ineffective in drug prevention. So thank you for taking time to watch this video today, and stay tuned for follow-on videos from IHEC.